Welcome everyone. Might as well go ahead and get started here. My name is Jonathan Hotz. I'm a product manager with a company called Angel. It's right here in the Tysons area. And so I'm going to be talking about multimodal applications. And what I want to try to do is cover a little bit of background about what I mean by multimodal, take a chunk of time to talk about these challenges and some of the things that we've learned as we've been building these types of apps. And then hopefully a little bit of time at the end we can actually kind of build an app together. So I'm trying to make this a little more interactive, pose some questions out to you guys, toss out suggestions, ask questions throughout. I'm kind of good with all that. So when I say a multimodal application, we're talking about multiple forms or modes of interaction with the application. This could be input and output, so it's not simply one way, but it's both ways. Lots of things, keyboard, pen, touch, gestures, body movements, olfactory. I mean, we can get really crazy here and add some other things. It really is about how can we have different ways to interact with an application so that we're not just tied to one thing. Visual and auditory are the most common. You're talking like speech recognition, touching, tapping, swiping, those kinds of things. So now, why would we want to incorporate multimodality into an app? We all call up the telephone for our favorite company and go through the IVR system. We take out our phones and we tap, swipe, and all that good stuff. But we can expand our user base if we start to bring these two things together, because we might have some environmental challenges, or we might have some physical challenges. Maybe there's limited dexterity, and so tapping the small buttons is hard. The environment, we're driving in a car. Obviously, I can't really look down at my phone without risking, major backups on the beltway and things. There's also some advantage to speech. I can execute a transaction or interaction via speech, sometimes much faster than touch. Like the example up here, kind of hard to read. I can say, meet with Jamie for coffee at 2 p.m. today. That has now created a reminder for a specific time on a specific day, maybe linking it to my contact. All these things that potentially, if I was just tapping it or swiping it, could take me maybe a minute. I've just now done this with a simple voice command. And that's not always the case. I mean, voice isn't the end-all be-all of things. Like a good example is if I need to get a taxi cab to where I am currently right now, if I were to go, I'd like a taxi cab to my current location right now, 5 seconds. But if I had an app that had this big old button that said here and now, and I just go doink and tap the button, it's done. So voice isn't always the end-all be-all, but it's a good component to that. And what we also let you do is have some kind of a dialogue. You have a conversation. I know it sounds really strange, you're having a conversation with your device. But that's what makes it powerful. It's not simply I ask a question, it gives me an answer, and I'm done. It's having that conversation. It's requesting clarification. It's asking for information that maybe I didn't provide. Very complex query. Hey, meet with Jamie at 2 p.m. Great. Today or some other day? It's that kind of a conversation that you can have that makes it a little bit of a deeper engagement. You're now engaging with the app where you might before just pick it up, swipe it, put it away, and you're done. And ultimately, it kind of gets us closer to a natural user interface. And by natural, I mean things that are normal to us. Like if you hand a tablet or a phone to a little kid, they pick it up and they start pointing at it. They don't pull out the keyboard and start typing. I mean, the keyboard's kind of a learned behavior, but there are some things that are sort of natural to us. Touching, sniffing, if you've got little kids, licking. I mean, there's lots of different things. So we kind of wonder, like, how do we get here to this point? And there's really the three factors that are coming together. You've got your technology, the access to that technology, and then the adoption of the whole thing. And the technology advances are coming from a lot of these companies up here. Yes, mine's in the middle, but Google and Nuance on the speech recognition side of things, that your ASR engines. You've got AT&T for a lot of the kind of the natural language, the intelligence behind these. Envoke is a company that does some stuff around the medical field. Angel, we do an awful lot with voice recognition and customer engagement and things. And the access to this, our mobile usage is going up at about 75% every year. And that's probably a combination of us using it more, but more people starting to use it. So access to this is growing, and it's letting more and more people get into this. And then lastly, we're starting to adopt it on our own time, when we want to, when it's important to us, when it's convenient to us. Whether we're driving in the car, hopefully that guy's actually stopped, but when we're driving in the car, maybe he's just using the voice there at that point, hopefully. We're sitting on the metro train, not whipping out our flashy device, but kind of keeping it close in there. But it's our own time, when it's convenient for us. And you kind of start to say, well, then what's stopping us? Why aren't we all just sitting here talking to our phones and doing all kinds of crazy gestures with it and things like that? There's probably a lot of social and cultural things that are getting in the way. You feel awkward. There's a lot of inertia around how we do things currently. I do it this way, I'm going to keep doing it this way until I die. I mean, there's some of that's going on there. Speed and efficiency, as I said, some cases voice is faster, some cases touch is faster. So it's still an importance of giving them the different options. And we don't really quite have that natural user interface yet. We're still kind of tied to the keyboard in some cases. They're making some advancements with, instead of typing, maybe you're swiping around the keyboard because that's kind of natural. It's this and this and this and this, because a lot of us are still hunt and peck typers and things like that. So now getting into what are some of these challenges. I've found about 6 different main challenges as I've started to build some of these multimodal applications for a lot of our customers. And the first one is a very similar challenge for a lot of UI design. It's who's going to decide what input method should be used? Should it be the voice flow, the designer, the person who's defining the process by which the person interacts with the device? Should it be the environment that the person is in starts to define that? And what we found in the best practice here, it really is the user. We don't want to force the user into one mode. The user really should have the control. That's kind of one of the key UI, UX best practices, is give the user the control. Let them turn off a mode. If they're going to go into a meeting, you want to be able to turn that noise off, the sound off. When they're going in the car, you want to be able to turn it back on again. And that kind of leads me to one thing, is that there is kind of a little caveat that safety might require the system to take over, for example, driving. In some cases, it might be that we really do want to disable something while the person's driving. We could be smart about it while the car's moving and they're sitting in the driver's seat, we turn it off. But if they're sitting in the back seat or the car's stationary, we can turn it back on again. So there's kind of one little caveat there. When we've got the multiple inputs, the question comes up is, what did the user do? Did they speak? Did they touch? And how do we differentiate? How do we know what the person really did? Maybe they have the phone and they accidentally shake it because they're startled. There's different things that could come in here if you've got these different modes for getting in there. Another question is, should one always take priority? Should you think of it in a hierarchical, that we're always going to take touch, and if I don't get any touch, then we're going to take voice, and then we're going to take this, and we're going to take that? What I've found is that usually the first input is what we should follow. And that first input can then kind of cancel some of the other inputs. So for example, if I'm speaking and I hit the little submit button, at that point we can disable the touch interface on that, so that if I accidentally tap the table with the rows, it ignores it, for example. Or it's now asked for my credit card. I'm making a payment for a magazine subscription, and it asked me to put my credit card in there. Well, there's other people around, I'm not going to speak it, so I'm going to engage the touch mode. And at that point, the device stops listening and just waits for you to put the input in at that point, to type the characters in. So this is where I get to ask you guys some questions here as well too. So visual and audio strengths. What are some strengths? What are some visual strengths that you guys can think of? Like, why do we put things visually?
Colors.
Colors, okay, yep.
Visual creatures, it's intuitive to us.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we're familiar with that type of things, yep.
Sometimes you can convey more information faster with a picture than you could with writing it out in prose or some other method.
Yep, yeah, it's very good, yep. What about on the audio side? What are some strengths about audio that we want to leverage in our applications?
Use it without actually looking at the phone.
Yep, that's good.
Convey emotion or intensity.
Yep, exactly, right. So you guys have actually hit on some good things here. There's some other things. One of the strengths about visual is privacy. You do it right, only you can see it. So that's kind of a key thing. The audio sometimes is faster than typing. We talked about it. There's a motion to it. It's a public kind of thing with that audio, and so the challenge around that is how do we incorporate both of those things into the application? And so one of the things we can do is we can use the visual for confirmation, because as you said, it's very quick. I can look at it and I get it quickly. Maybe it's a picture, maybe it's my credit card number, and I can just look at the last 4 digits, but I get it very quickly. And it's also good for correction, because I can see it. I don't have to listen. Auditory processing is a little bit more tricky than visual processing. You really have to have more attention on sound coming in than you do visually. Now, at the same time, for the audio side, things like dictation, where I can speak a long thing and it translates that into text, that's very good, because that's much faster than typing. So if I've got a long list of stuff as well, like about 20 different options, instead of having to swipe through and find the right one, if I know it, like toppings on a pizza, what of these 20 toppings do you want? Where the hell is mushrooms? I can just go mushrooms and I get that in there very quickly. So we want to leverage these strengths wherever we can. Now, the next thing that comes up is we've got this smartphone device and things distract us all the time. So what are some like user originated pauses? These are things that the user does because they need to stop the interaction. What are some good examples?
What about the credit card?
Right, I need to get some more information because I don't know my credit card number. Sure, yep, those things come out. What about, what's that?
Walking out of Wi-Fi.
Yeah. What about, the external pauses? These are like things that come in and interrupt us while we're doing something. I get a phone call, yep. What's that? Yes, yeah, your children distract you all the time. So, right, we've got things like, I need to get more information, I need to clear my throat, I've got a frog, pepperoni or something like that. Well, obviously the ASR is going to really go wondering what you were doing with that. But I get phone calls. My coworkers and my friends walk over and start talking to me even though I don't want them to talk to me. So how do we handle these pauses, these interruptions that come into our lives? Well, give the control back to the user. Give them a pause button that they can sit there and swipe it, or hit a big pause button that says, hold on a second here, I need to do something. You could also build some pauses into these flows. Let's say I'm renewing my subscription, and please enter your credit card number, and I'll wait while you get it out. Or you might know that, but maybe it's your account number. You're a Starwood member, for example, and you're trying to get your Starwood number out there. It can say, I need to get your account number, and I'll wait until you get it. Just tap the button to begin. And then the application pauses and waits for you to pull it out, find it. Oh, yep, okay, now I can keep going. Or things like the phone call. When you get a phone call and you need to come back in there, we want to repeat the same step over again, because most likely I've now been distracted enough where I can't exactly remember what it was that I was just doing. So we're going to go just like a normal person would. When you're talking to them, you can go, what were we talking about again? And then you can start that same step over again. Then we've got the environment that we have to deal with as well. There might be some things here that are causing us problems. I'm in a noisy area. There's lots of noise around me. It might be hard for me to hear. It might now be hard for me to speak, for the system to accurately understand what it is that I said. My hands are busy. I've got my eyes on the road. Hands are on the steering wheel, or I'm fumbling with this, or I've got packages in my arm from the grocery store or something like that. So now I have a hard time with the touch interface, and this is where the speech might come in. I've got private information I need to take care of. I'm not going to sit here and start reading off 510, 510, 510 as my credit card number while everybody else is madly writing it down so they can use it and things. I'm going to want to type that in. My social security number, or my doctor's ID number and things like that. I want to keep that safe. So we want to build in multiple ways to control the flow. So I can either say, I want it to be all voice, I want it to be all touch. Partway through, I want to switch it. But again, we've got to make sure we include the essential information in every step. in every mode. If I suddenly shut down the voice or the visual part of it, and in part of the flow it says, hey, I put your order number up on the screen, can you look to make sure it's right? And you can't see it, well, obviously that's a problem. So we need to make sure the essential information stays in both modes there. And then one of the cool things about the smartphones is we got hardware we can play with. A typical telephone, you call up, it's got 8 kilohertz of range, and that's it. It's hard to understand things. It's limited. It cuts out the high frequencies and things like that. But on the hardware, now we got like 3 different microphones. We're canceling noise here and there. We're capturing 16, 24 kilohertz of frequency. So there's lots of things we can do to leverage the hardware that's on these devices to our advantage to make the interactions better and things. And when we talk about a conversational flow, because I think that's one of the next steps that we want to try to get to with the multimodality. We've got Siri and Google, where you can ask a question and you get a response, and it's kind of done. There's some exceptions to it, like making a reservation or something like that. But it's having that conversation, because that's what now starts to make it a little bit more normal instead of odd and quirky behavior. But it's that conversational flow. So we need to think about the steps involved in completing a process. And we do this all the time with our UX design and things, is what's the flow that we go through? How can we communicate the steps to the user? Are there cues that we can give them that says, I'm going to need this next? Maybe we put up a picture of their invoice, and we highlight 3 different fields, and we say, I'm going to need this information as we get going, so the person knows to find it and get that stuff out, so they're not each time having to tell them, I need your account number. Oh, crap, I can dig this thing out and start working with it. So how do we give them these cues and things? So it starts to get into some of the things that we think about or maybe we don't even really think about as we have conversations with people. There's cues, like, how do I tell you that it's your turn to start talking? How do you tell me that you need me to pause for a moment while you do something? What happens to start over? How do we need to do these kinds of things? So there's some social things we can start to look at and tie this into the visual interface to help out with this process. We can incorporate prompts, so we kind of cue the person. You could say, what can I do for you today? And it's this big open-ended question. Or maybe you say things like, hey, I can help you look up your account information, or maybe take care of some pending transactions. Now the user knows to say account information or approved transactions. So we've given them some subtle cues that's not simply like those really bad IVRs. To approve your balances, press 1. To check your balance, press 2. And that's, people don't really like that at all. And then lastly, we've got natural language processing, and I'm not sure how many, you probably have heard that phrase before, and it means a couple different kinds of things. But think about it as I need to collect this chunk of information, and I define all the different facets of that information. Now, when I say something, it can go in there and go, okay, I got this much, and I need to now collect these last 2 fields. You know, think about it like a form. You fill out 4 fields, but you've got 2 more fields that you need to fill out. That's kind of what natural language processing can do. There's another side of it that it's all along lines of, I ask it something and it kind of understands what I'm talking about and gets me relevant information. But in this particular case, you can collect partial information and then start to ask for the remaining information that the person didn't give you. Any questions about these different challenges and things? Okay. All right, so let's try to get to the fun part here. We're going to build ourselves an app. We've got this company, Pizza R Us. Obviously, we sell pizzas. We want carry out or delivery. We've got a couple things. So who would be our users? Who would, and this again is questions out to you, this is not rhetorical. Who would be some good users of a pizza place?
Hungry people.
Oh, yes. How about demographics kind of things? College kids, okay, right? People with no landline, right? Uh-huh. Okay, all right. So we've got some, do you want me to write this down, or? All right. Where would they be? That's kind of the next question. This is the environment that we have to think about here, because I'm trying to tie all these back to their 6 challenges. So where might they be?
Within range of the pizza place.
Okay, nearby, right? Home. How about the driving in the car on the way there? That's kind of a good one. Half the time I do that, calling in on the way in. So again, we're starting to kind of think about where they are, what challenges they might have. So again, that environment, they're in the car, so they're probably not going to be able to see the screen a whole lot. What kinds of things, and I will start writing some of these down, what kinds of things do we need to capture to do this pizza thing here?
Number of pizzas.
All right. Right, how many do you want?
Pizza size.
Size or type, yep. Square, round, triangle, what? Yeah. Toppings, good.
Payment information.
Sorry?
Payment information, maybe.
Yep, yeah, no, definitely. At some point, we gotta be able to pay for this. Maybe you wanna put the credit card in. Yep, we got, address, if it's carry out, if it's delivery, and, delivery time. Do you have any coupons? Sure, okay. What else? Anything else you guys can think of?
Coke with it or anything else, other things?
Sure, yep.
Extra stuff.
Yeah.
Extras?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, like user comments.
All right, so if we're gonna be building this, we want it to be multimodal. What should we do on the audio side of things? How do we want to start off our interaction? The user opens up the app and they say, okay, I'm ready to start placing my pizza order. What do you think it should say?
First thing is you should figure out how many pizzas, so you can figure out how many times you need to iterate through the different processes. So,
Okay, all right. So we say maybe how many? We can be a little more verbose than simply how many.
Starting with your mode of interaction. Like, do you want voice or do you want?
Sure, we could do that. So it could either be a question or maybe a voice or touch. And that could be a question, or it could be maybe you tap one button to say voice and one button to say touch. Okay. And then we start to work our way down through. We said, like, how many do you want, which is probably good whether you want to do voice or touch, but like, how many do you want? And then just, you think, start running through these different things, like for one pizza at a time? That'd be good? Okay. So we hit our,
Can we geolocate these guys so we know we've got them in our range of delivery or something?
Hey, there's a good idea. That's a good idea. So maybe here, possibly the first thing we want to do is check, are we in, if you said, maybe if you said delivery or carry out, if you're within range. So,
You also have a place just to call your store, call them when you want.
right, yeah.
That's crazy.
We're building a multimodal app here. Come on. I don't want to talk to people. Who talks to anybody these days?
Fascinating. How about tell it whether the store is open or not?
Yep, that's
Or
good.
how long your pizza will be, and also how long your pizza will take to be ready.
The current weight, sure,
like
yeah.
200 pizzas is Super Bowl.
Store hours and wait time. So, all right, so we've hit a couple things here that are kind of at the beginning of this. And then maybe the first thing we want to do is that we check the location services, so we could pop that up first. And that's really kind of like a first time app thing. And so, yeah, maybe you pop it up and she says, hey, I noticed you're outside of the delivery area. Do you want this to be carry out? Do something like that. So if it's outside, and we get a little bit of logic here, if outside, then we could set the variable or whatever for then carry out. Or maybe you're driving in because your location is Tyson's and you're placing the order at Reston, but that's where you want it delivered anyway, is Reston. So we need to build some logic in there as well too. How are we doing on time? Almost right now here. So as we think about some of these different, let's see here, some of these different challenges. So we're pretty much giving this the control back to the user here. We've said that because we want to let maybe the user pick whether it's voice or touch initially. We've started to think about the environment that they're in. Where'd that one go? There we go. So we started to think about that. Are they driving in the car or not? how do we want to handle these things? Because if they're in the car, we know that pretty much is going to have to be voice, and so we want to lead them through a conversation. Or somebody could get up here right at the beginning and say, hey, I'd like to get 2 large pizzas with pepperoni and mushroom delivered at 5 p.m. And your order's done. I mean, and that's kind of one of the cool, powerful things about voice is I've just now run through this process that could take me maybe 2 minutes, or I have to actually talk to somebody to do it. I can kind of communicate this really quickly. All right, so I'm kind of at my limit here. And we didn't really quite get through this, which is too bad. It's kind of a fun thing. But any questions? Any questions on this? Yeah.
Can you name some apps that use multimodal, some good apps that
Yeah, let's see. What are some of the apps that do that? I think the E-Trade application has added in some voice capabilities for that. There are some specialty voice assistants. You can do like a search for voice assistant out there on the web. And you've got Dragon for Salesforce is an app that lets you put in comments. What's that?
Google Voice Search.
Google Voice Search, yep. And then obviously the Siri and Google Now have some more things there. We're working on a couple we're actually working on one for Reader's Digest that'll let you renew your subscriptions and things. It's not on the App Store yet, but you'll be able to do that. You can change your address by just speaking your full address, and we parse it all out and cool things like that. Yeah?
So I know like Siri is not available in iOS 6 as an API to use for voice recognition.
Right.
So are there any commercial products out there that you can buy that can integrate this capability in your iOS apps?
Yeah, there is, Google's API is not available to iOS apps unless you kind of hack and go around the corner. There's a couple companies, Nuance has something, there's a company called LumenVox that have these AT&T, their Watson engine is out there that you can interface with for the ASR services. So a lot of these are ASR services. They capture text, they capture audio, parse it against a set of grammar, some words that you're looking for, and return back to you what they heard.
These are like fully baked products, or are they still
Yeah.
experimental stage?
No, these are fully baked. Yeah. And then there's Angel's Lexi platform, which is voice enabling apps, but that's a longer discussion. Okay, well, I'm kind of out of time, so thank you all. If you got any more questions, come over and grab me.